Okay, welcome to Chapter 1, and I'm going to break these videos into several different pieces. Hopefully this one will record properly. I've been having a problem with my computer, and it starts to really slow down, so as I'm listening to the recording, I find that I have to re-record them, and so that's kind of frustrating. So hopefully I'll remember to tell you all the things that I told you first time that you didn't get to hear. So anyway, we're going to start in Chapter 1. And a couple of things that I want to point out. I'm starting on page 1-5, and each chapter has its chapter number dash and then the page numbers. So 1-5 down, about 2/3 of the way down, the tax formula for individuals corresponds to the tax form, the tax return form. If you turn over to page X, which I talked about in the orientation, there's a picture of the tax return, the 1040 tax return. I'm holding up that picture right now. Kind of looks like that. No, that's my bikini. So this tax return, the 1040 return, is the main one. We're going to start out our class using the 1040A, which is a little bit easier, fewer lines, so less stuff to look at. That's always a good thing. Then after the first exam, we will graduate over to the 1040 form. At this time, I still don't have access to the 1040 and the 1040A. The IRS has not released those yet. I'm hoping that they are released by the time we finish Chapter 1 so that we can start doing those sample problems. That would be an issue if we couldn't do that. So hopefully that'll work out. So looking at page 5, I've got gross income. So our tax formula is gross income minus the deductions for AGI, which are deductions that reduce AGI, gives us our AGI, or adjusted gross income. Then we subtract out the greater of our standard deduction or itemized deductions. Then we subtract out our exemption, something big that's going to change for 2018, which I'll talk about when we get to that part. That equals our taxable income. Then we calculate our tax, or our tax liability. And I want you to make a note that your tax is your tax liability. Your tax liability for the year, the total amount that you owe for the current year. What doesn't have anything to do with how much you've paid so far. It's the amount of money that you would owe in taxes. From that, we're going to subtract out what you have paid. Most of us pay our taxes via payroll deduction. We're also going to subtract out any tax credits if we have any, and that will give us the amount that we owe, or if we have a refund coming. So our tax liability minus what we've paid. If we've paid more than what we owe, then we get a refund. If we paid less than what we owe, then we have an amount due. So we're going to treat tax credits just kind of like they were tax payments. So the 1040 form follows that same idea, and if you look along the left-hand side, I'm going to start right around in the middle of the first page, and this is on page X again, line 7. So lines 7 through 22 are your income. You're going to add all of your income together on line 22. That gives you your total income. From that, or your gross income, we're going to subtract out any adjustments that we have for AGI. So any adjustments that we might have, educator expenses, moving expenses, etc. We'll subtract all of those out to get to adjusted gross income on line 37. Adjusted gross income then moves forward over to line 38, which is on the next page. From that, we're going to subtract the greater of our itemized deductions, or our standard deduction, and we'll also subtract our exemptions to get us our taxable income on line 43. Then line 44 is our tax, or our tax liability. That's where we make a calculation. So line 43 is used to calculate the tax that we owe for the year. Line 44 is what is the amount that we got, the amount of tax that we owe for the year. So that's our tax liability. And then we're going to skip over alternative minimum tax. We're not going to talk about that. And then we might have some tax credits, a whole bunch of other tax credit type things. Also, the amount of money that's been withheld from our paycheck would go on line 64. Add all of those credits and payments together and subtract those from, well, if they're greater than, if they're less than the amount that we've paid, that we owe for the year, then we still owe money. If the amount that that we have in total payments and credits is more than the amount that we owe for the year, then we have a refund. So that's how all of that works, along with the tax formula. So that tax formula is what we use to calculate taxes. It's just that we do it in the form of a in a form, the 1040 form or the 1040A form. We're going to skip over the 1040 easy because that's just too easy. We'll go on to 1040A. So I've talked about most of the things on pages 1, 6, and pages 6 and 7, or the beginning of page 7. I did want to point out when you're reading the text, when you're listening to the videos. Let's back up. When you're listening to the videos, I highly recommend you have your textbook with you and you have some paper with you so that you can take notes as you go. A lot of times I'm going to point out things maybe in the forms or something else that you that may not be in the textbook. I'm also going to point out things in the textbook that you want to highlight, things that you want to tab using these little thingies that I talked about in Blackboard. These are one of your best friends. And so there's some really great things that Would You Believe in the middle of page 6 I like. It's a little quote by Stephen Colbert. And then those self-study problems. The answers to all of the self-study problems are in one of the appendices, Appendix E. So in the back of your textbook, in Appendix E, is the solutions to those self-study problems. So I recommend you do the self-study problems and then look up your answer. Make sure you got it correct. Some of them you don't have to do, and I'll point those out, the ones that I really recommend, and then some that I don't recommend. So like the 1.3 on page 7, I recommend that one. You should probably do that. So unless I tell you otherwise, you probably don't need, you probably should do it. So I hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing you soon.